Time from WhatCulture here with the one and only Rob Van Dam. Mr. Van Dam, how are we doing today?
Most excellent, dude. By fantastic standards.
Have you trademarked that yet?
As far as you know.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to run that. Nobody will buy it if I do anything. So my first question to you is kind of a... I don't want to feel like I'm blowing smoke up your ass, but I am going to do that because I think it's only right.
Light it up, bro.
But it's true because if you watch wrestling in 2022, which I'm sure you do, you must see your influence all over it because you were kind of perfecting this style that now has just become the mainstream in what, like the mid-90s, the late 90s, the early 2000s, the late 2000s, the 2010. You were always ahead of it. Like you must watch it and go, yeah, I see what you're doing.
It's nice to know that I've inspired, you know what I mean? Not just myself, but yeah, I was always original for moves that everybody liked as a fan. So now that they grow up in their wrestling, even though everyone else in the business thought I was crazy at the time, you know, in All Japan, Stan Hansen used to give me so much shit. I'm out there trying to do backflip off the guardrail. He didn't see any place for that in the business, and you know, till I earned his respect in a match with him one time, because then he, you know, gave him the shoulders and backflipped and ran at him, kicked him or something, and he was like, I never seen it from that angle. Like you were there and then you just disappeared because you know he's blind. The back handspring like totally got respect. Then all of a sudden he was like, I got him in. It looks so different than because you know he was watching me rolling and flipping and he was in there beating the shit out of everybody.
How hard did he hit you in that match?
God, the worst for years. The worst injury that I got in Japan was from him as my partner. Just coming in and just pushing the side of my head to get because he wanted to bowl in there and start wailing on Kawada or whatever, and I just went and you know.
I mean that's hardcore if he's pushing you and hurting your neck.
Yeah, and you know especially when you're young, what are you going to say? You know?
Don't do that, Stan Hansen.
Tag me in, I'll be in the corner.
That's great.
It hurt for so long.
I can imagine. Oh, dude, it's the worst. So, how did you come up with it? I mean, that's my big question. I know you probably talked about this before, but in a world full of, you know, legends, Stan Hansen, I think we can put in that category, telling you, what are you doing? How do you come up with it, and how do you sustain it? And because I know right now, if you came to watch a match of mine and you went, don't do that, I'd be like, man, Rob Van Dam says don't do it. I probably shouldn't do it. So how do you know what you are doing is the correct way for you in your character and your career, etc.?
Well, I mean, experience it eventually. Starting out, it was because the original Sheik trained me, and Sabu, and all three of us are very different than anybody else. Different from each other, but we're different than anybody else. And I think that's what Sheik taught us, was to be original. And then when you start out in the business, you get advice from everybody, conflicting things. You get confused. Like, this guy says do less of that. He says do more. As soon as I would get that, you know, I'd go to Sheik and I'd say, man, I don't know, you know what he said. He said, I'll make it easy. Don't listen to any of them. Don't know what the they're talking about.
That's great.
Made it easy for me.
Yeah, because then you know, just because you were right. I mean, you absolutely were right. Again, I know I'm doing it, but it's just true. I remember when I was a kid and you watching WWF because it's WWF, and then magically there was this incredible promotion which over in the UK just popped up on a channel called Bravo, which it wasn't. You were like, why is there wrestling on Bravo? And it was guys like you, and it was guys like Taz and Tommy Dreamer, but you especially, and it was just like, what is this guy doing? And you were hooked because it was different and it was new and it was unique.
Yeah.
And so did you know at the time, I'm just going to say it, I'm changing wrestling? Because I've always said that Rob Van Dam is there's other guys too, but you're part of that like clique.
No, I don't think that I can claim that, but I knew that I was increasing my own standards, and I knew how different I was just from everybody telling me, which took a while.
Yeah.
I mean, even in 2001, when they came out with my song One of a Kind, like it was still kind of sinking in that, wow, everybody looks at me as being unique, because I didn't necessarily see myself that way. And at that point in life, I didn't study everyone else and notice how crazy everyone else is but me. Now I do that all the time. I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not like everybody else, you know, out of the ring too. But that's a lot of it too. Out of the ring, I think that I think outside of the box more than inside of the box. And I think that I have a unique approach to everything pretty much that I do, especially with passion, artistically, it always seems like it has to be different.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you mentioned obviously away from the ring. It just sounds like from the the stories and the interviews you've done, you were just pretty chilled out backstage. You're happy to do whatever, because obviously there's always stories of people, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Whereas you sounded like, give me whatever you want and I'll go out there and absolutely smash it.
Well, usually I'm in the parking lot smoking because I hate that part of the day.
Yeah.
It's just, butting heads with different minds and arguing over stupid things. This doesn't make sense, but this does. What? It's that kind of. So I hate that part anyway.
Yeah.
I just, I pride myself on being able to take everyone's finish better than anybody else. But,
true, man.
I'm glad that didn't, put me under too far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that could be a horrible quality to have if you're trying to get ahead in the business. But, I think everything was just always different. It comes out different because I think different. Like, even in Japan, once I started wrestling in Japan, still a young boy, but 3 or 4 years in the business, like getting some experience, just hitting the ropes. And Giant Baba called me out in the daytime when the young boys are working out in the ring or whatever in the arena, and told he called me over, he whispered in one of the guys' ears, who was it? I think it was Asako. Anyway, he told me to go in the ring to run the ropes. I did. I ran. And the point that he was trying to make, which I didn't even really notice that I do different, is like, when you learn to run the ropes, you put your back into it like that.
Yeah.
RVD doesn't do that. I run at it, I hit it, and then I turn and kind of like face into what I'm going, because I don't want to be looking at, what's ahead of me too early. Like, to me, that takes me out of the moment.
Yeah.
So he was telling me that I wouldn't be able to see in time to do something. That was his point. He was trying to prove, but I hit the ropes, and whoever it was, dropped down. So I jumped over him 2 or 3 times. I hit the ropes, and then finally, I spun and did like a back handspring over him like that. And then obviously I won the debate there. And then I think it was Dory Funk, that was saying, well, that works for you, but most people couldn't do that. I'm like, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. If I was going to teach somebody to do something, you know what I mean? I would do it the way that I do it, because it makes sense to me.
Surely it should be. That's the coolest thing about wrestling. Rob Van Dam can do it, so let him do it, because he will instantly be unique and people will pick up on that, which is basically what happened.
I guess so.
It is. And I tell you what that then manifested itself into, you kind of mentioned it earlier, is that no matter what you were given, no matter what you were doing, every time that one-of-a-kind entrance music hit, everybody went nuts. ECW, and especially in WWE, because you never know how people are going to transition across, how the audience is going to take to them. But I remember day one, and you were kind of almost like, in a good way, a problem child of the Alliance, because you were in it, and everyone's like, nah, get him out. He needs to just be a good guy that we all enjoy.
Yeah. Well, looking back, too bad the guy that writes the checks didn't love me as much as the fans did, because in the fans' eyes, everybody would have an RVD sign at one point, but at the same time, we had Stone Cold, we had The Rock, of course, The Undertaker was always there. Who else did we have that was on top?
Triple H?
Well, of course, yeah. And sometimes, Shawn Michaels would be in and out. But during that time, there was so many big stars. And so, what I'm saying, I wasn't on top main event for sellout crowds, for any length of time where I'm up there, on the business end, so the fans' positive energy, all that, like, that's something that they could never take away from me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And they never did. They honestly never did. I remember the coolest thing when you used to watch around that time period was just you, let alone your matches, was just you coming out, because it was like, and excuse me, I think everyone, you kind of touched on it, always wanted you to have a little bit more. And I think it's a shame that they, whoever we are, saying didn't see that you in the same way. I always think it was a pity, because I think if we had, kind of like what they did with Jeff Hardy a few years afterwards, they easily could have given you, the ball and let you run with it.
Yeah, well, it's all about timing. You know what I mean? Some things happen in history so that the future happens the way that it does. I mean, obviously, when I did have the World Championship, I dropped the ball by getting busted. Whether it would be a crime now or not, I don't know. And by the way, it was just, I had a bag with me. It was possession. Like people, you know, they go off on that, think that whatever they think, but that's what it was, which isn't, you know, even illegal at times. But you know, I feel like, hey, that's great that we've made progress, and I'm glad to be part of that. So
I was going to mention that to you as well. Nowadays, you just shrug your shoulders and get on. Like no one's even worried about it anymore.
Right. And so yeah, that's part of being ahead of my time. Part of feeling valid. Like I have a place in this life to move people forward in ways that I see necessary or fit. So.
Well, I think you've been proven right. I think there's a lot of evidence to show you've been proven right, both with that and in the ring. Lastly as well, because I know a lot of people watching this are up-and-coming, aspiring wrestlers, one piece of advice you could give to them, what would you say?
I would say think about why you're doing it, and then remember that. And then at times when you're asking yourself, why the hell am I doing this? Go back to that answer, you know, like have that kept in your mental cabinet somewhere in storage so you can pull that out and remind yourself, because a lot of times you're going to face obstacles that are so challenging, you're going to question your very own efforts. And so that's my advice.
I just want to point out, that's brilliant advice. That's really, really brilliant advice. Rob and Dan, thank you very much. You're an absolute hero. There he is. Like, share, subscribe. See you soon.